Hi everyone, how are y'all tonight?
Hi, Belinda. I'm good. How are you?
Doing good, doing real good.
Good.
How you doing tonight, Belinda?
Doing good, doing good. Probably a lot warmer than y'all, because I hear you guys are getting some pretty cold weather.
Well,
Everybody.
it was 60 today in Chicago, but it's supposed to drop down to like 16 overnight.
Okay, wait. Keep that up there.
I think it's supposed to get down to 1 here. It has been like snowing cats and dogs all day, and the wind is just like, it's really gross out. Finally winter though.
Yeah, we had like 50-mile-an-hour winds going on here, but it's like 60 degrees out. And then it started raining about 2:30. So what is that device, Laura?
What? Are you talking to me?
What's that device?
What is that device? I thought people were going to guess. There's
I couldn't figure it out. I couldn't see a close enough picture of it.
It is a hand crank model of a Ducati Desmo valve system. That's the kind of geek I am. Someday I'll get a real one for myself and I can have a better picture of it.
Don't you already have a duck?
Yeah, I do. I mean, someday I'll get a model, that same model, I'll get one for myself and hang it up, and then I can take a better picture of it.
Did you build that? Or did you machine any of that?
No, that's just like bike parts. That is hanging on the wall at the Ducati Museum in Bologna, Italy. And I thought it was the coolest thing ever, and I totally want one. So if I ever have like a junk Ducati that I can scavenge parts from, I will.
How's it going, John? Long time no see.
So is everybody ready for Christmas? Everybody's done with everything? Amazon is through visiting your house for a little while, or everybody ready?
No, they haven't delivered half our presents, stuff that we ordered.
Oh, wow.
We ordered some stuff in the first part of December, and it's still sitting in Virginia. It's been sitting there for 14 days.
And the one thing I ordered showed up 2 days sooner than it was supposed to.
I think we've only had one thing not show up on time, and then my husband just said that the company, whatever he orders something for me, that they're overnighting it. So we'll see if it gets here. I don't know what it is. So yeah, I get everything done early, and he's definitely my last minute. So we'll see if it makes it.
My wife is a Christmas baby, so my present's here every day of the year.
You know, Rick, if you don't celebrate her every day of the year, one day is not going to make up for it.
I thank my stars that she's here. Trust me. She's got the memory that I left long down the road. All the family events and birthdays and all the stupid things that happen in life. I can't believe she remembers nearly as many as she does.
How long have you guys been married?
20, almost 30 years, but it's in the high 20s. I can tell you that.
Do we need to ask her? You said she remembers. Do we need to ask her?
I can. I'll check. Hang on. Mary, how long are we married? 27. Yeah, she's on the money.
So if you ask that same question to a friend of mine, he used to answer that he's been happily married for 10 years. Like, wait a second, Dan, haven't you been married for 40 or 50? He said, yeah, but 10 of them were happy.
Were they 10 in a row or 10 spread out is the question.
Don't know, never asked him that. I'm guessing they were early on.
Is anyone planning a winter update or a spring update, whatever you want to call it, like a preseason meeting for the state? Any interesting topics?
What do you got planned, Rick?
We're reviewing our QAS that got off the ground this year. We're going to just do an introduction with that, and it seems the common theme is range management. Range management, time management are kind of tied in together. They're throwing coaching in there too, but I'd like to see the coaching become more of more about communication than, coaching is really broad, but I don't know if we're going to be actually focusing on the communication aspect of coach to coach or coach to student. But the main theme seems to be range management.
Can you elaborate more on the time management element?
For us, the time management, we're having coaches. They'll introduce the card and read some, then go into their own paraphrase, back to the card, add an example, maybe start talking about range diagram, getting a little too elaborate, and it's as one of the trainers said, that they're actually hearing the instructions 3 times before actually going out and watching the demo. They're getting the text version, and a lot of times they're getting the paraphrase version, and then they're getting the examples of not war stories, but maybe examples you carry in from the street. So if it's 7 steps on the card, they're hearing stuff 21 times before they actually are watching demo.
And so how do you intend to address that or remediate that?
We're I think we're obviously going to review the section in the Rider Coach guide. You know, the points that are brought up on the guide. I'd like to introduce a discussion of what range management means to each coach, because some of us may have a different definition of what it is. And we're going to, I think, put together scenarios that we've discovered in the QA session, and then ask the coaches what they would do in that situation. So, and we're looking to do it in a Zoom format with breakout rooms and then gather back together. So I'm open to suggestion. I'd have to say, I'll be as honest as possible. We had very little response come back from our coaches. We put out an email prepping them that there's going to be an update and what they would like to cover, and responses were like a handful, less than 10, for over 150 coaches at least. It's discouraging. It's you know, it seems like a paycheck more than a passion.
Does New Jersey require any professional development over and above? Well, MSF doesn't really require any professional development, but does New Jersey require anything?
Not a required. We do need to attend the update. We have a yearly update. Generally, it's Super Bowl Sunday in the morning. Actually, that weekend, we break up into 3 regions. We have 3 regions. We have a southern region, which is Friday night. Central Jersey does Saturday, and then North Jersey does Sunday. So, you know, you attend your update, you're good.
And what does that update entail?
A lot of the updates over the years have been, we've had Ray fly in many times to do updates, and you know, it's his topics on what's new, what's he'll review classroom, he'll review some range stuff, he'll have an open discussion. So a lot of times we've brought Ray in. Sometimes we have a brain injury alliance where they cover other brain injuries besides anything that can happen in motorcycling, and they come in and they kind of just pat us on the back, thank us for our efforts, and they let us know what they're doing at their foundation, at their alliance, and they discuss events coming up. We have cruise nights to advocate safety. We have a passport where you get it stamped at different locations. Like, let's say there's a series of diners, like maybe 10 restaurants or diners or hangouts, let's say. And as you go to them, you get stamped, and then you get entered into a raffle of some type. And they do that, and they have these cruise nights that they promote. So it seems that a lot of our safety money flows from the state through the Brain Alliance and on to the update that they sponsor every year. Generally, the Brain Alliance doesn't take too much time. Ray is the bulk of the update, and then we may talk about some state-specific stuff, whether it be licensing changes or skill test change or whatever, you know, whatever the local program has tweaked from year to year.
How about other folks? What do you have for, what does your state require for professional development, and what do they offer you?
We only have to do the state that I know of. The same thing like Rick said, we just have to do our yearly, and we missed it this past year, and so we're having ours. We usually does ours I think in February. And this year, you know, we'll probably end up doing it on Zoom also. But they were hoping to do it in person. But I mean, this would have been my second update. Third. This would have been my third. Because like I said, we missed one last year. But yeah, we're only required to have that. And you know, I very much like Rick said, there's, you know, probably not a lot of people that are going to seek out that extra.
Out here in Colorado Spring, or at least in Colorado, our PDWs, the state mandates one event per year. It can be varying different things. It could be you attending a rider course of your choice, rider coach prep courses for different for the three-wheel basic bike bonding. Those work, and then the state puts on, generally in the off season, multiple different venues for rider coaches to sit through an hour and a half brief on some topic of discussion. I went to one last January. We talked about insurance liabilities and stuff like that on the range. So.
We're required to do annual updates in the spring, and ours is an all-day affair, 8 hours usually. Probably won't be quite so long this year with having to do everything through WebEx, but we have a combination of program-specific material, policy and procedure updates, those sorts of things, and then some professional development activities, which can be anything from general soft skills related to rider coach work, or specific things. This year, we're going to do a coaching priorities exercise.
So New York requires a workshop, which generally every spring. They changed the format this year. 2020 was supposed to be at each site, I think, or each company, however you want to look at it. But it never really ended up happening because of the fun with coronavirus back in March and April. And I know there's one scheduled for March 21, but I got a feeling that whatever format they choose is probably going to be changed, because I don't think the situation is going to be resolved by then. But they're day-long events. Trying to remember from the one we did last year. I think it was a couple main sessions and then a couple breakout sessions, and then a lunch and other silliness like award presentations, which nobody seems to really care much about. Or it seems to be the same people that get the same awards each year. I haven't resolved which, because I was too new to care about it last time I saw one. Phew, good thing I said that before Lynn showed up.
Why? Because she's the one that gets the awards?
I don't even remember, honestly.
Maybe it's the time of year that doesn't generate the enthusiasm. You know, we're generally, it's around Super Bowl weekend, it's still cold and snowy. And I don't know if anybody's, you know, mentally or physically into it at this point. It's just discouraging with the lack of responses. It's, I don't know. We do what we can, but right, you can bring a horse to water, or like that old saying.
You're definitely not the only one with that experience, Rick, as far as not getting a whole lot of input from coaches, which I agree. I think that's too bad.
I know Ron would complain about that, but generally in a normal year, during the winter, I'm not thinking about motorcycling at all. And during motorcycle season, I'm not thinking about my winter activities at all. So anytime somebody tries to, in the middle of the summer, ask me about winter stuff, I'm like, I'll think about it come September, October. And then, once September and October hit and somebody asks me about motorcycling, so I'll worry about it in April when I'm done with my winter stuff. It's just the two just don't work together for the most part.
What are your winter activities?
I took up curling about 15 years ago. So winter is curling, summer is motorcycling.
Okay, I'm gonna say the most southern thing ever. What the heck is curling?
That is that crazy sport you watched during the Olympics that was on at 2 a.m, where they're chasing rocks down ice and they're sweeping with brooms. There was also a Simpsons episode about it that actually was just on again the other night. I happened to catch it.
It's shuffleboard for people under 80.
Or over 80. There's a lot of people over 80 who curl also.
I was looking for an emoji and I just switched to an Android phone, and Android has way better emojis. And there's what is that thing called? They have one of those things as a emoji in Android.
Oh, a curling rock. Yeah, stone rock. They're pretty loose with the terms, unlike MSF.
Curling is really popular here too. In fact, there's a big, huge curling facility pretty close to where I live. And one of our private training providers actually uses the curling club facility in the summer as his training site.
Where are you again, Laura?
Minnesota.
Oh, yeah, well, yeah. Minnesota, Wisconsin. Yeah, there's a few curlers from those areas.
Does curling require you to hydrate regularly? Or is that, oh, it does. Oh, good.
I was just going to say, I think in Wisconsin, it's drinking teams with a curling problem.
Well, the best part about it is generally, I mean, our club has an incredible bar that's very well stocked and also dirt cheap. You go up, you get a craft beer, you take it down onto the ice with you, you drink a little, you put it down, you do your thing, you come back 5 minutes later, it's cold, you take another sip, you do your thing for 5 more minutes, you come back, you drink it, it's still cold, because it's sitting there in a 36-degree room. So your beer stays nice and cold. That's how I got turned on to single malt scotch that turned into a very expensive habit.
I hate to break it to you, but every sport in Wisconsin includes what you just said. Every single sport in Wisconsin. That it's all just to drink.
Apparently they don't swim in Wisconsin.
Get them drunk enough, they'll do whatever.
You float in a tube.
This is true. So as who mentioned, if you're over 80 doing curling? Somebody?
I asked what curling was, and someone said it was shuffleboard for people under 80. And because I had no idea. Now I remember now, though, seeing it. And yeah, once or twice, like you said, probably on The Simpsons.
So this is Sarah from Wisconsin. I have an age question for all y'all, but I was hoping not to discriminate against anyone, but I was hoping that Ron and Dennis would be on for this question. So I did an interview today for a candidate to get into the Rider Coach Prep in Wisconsin. And my question to everyone tonight is, would you hire someone your age to become a rider coach? See why I was hoping we had some of us more seasoned rider coaches on here tonight? You guys look kind of young to me, but I don't see very well, so that may be skewed as well.
Well, I'll be 60 next month, and I would totally hire a 60-year-old.
Oh, well,
It's the new 40.
Pardon me? It's the new 40?
Well, I'm only 23, and I totally would love to hire 23-year-old rider coaches like myself.
I think I was one of the youngest ones when I started in Rochester, except last year, a couple kids, I mean, by kids, I mean early 20s, joined the team. But I'm pretty sure among everybody except them, I'm probably one of the youngest, and I just turned 50.
Well, speaking of the youngest, Rita Liebeck's daughter was our, I don't know if she still is, but she was our youngest rider coach ever trained in Wisconsin.
No, not ever. Greg Patzer's boys were younger than Becca.
What do you
And
mean, Becca was 18 or had just turned 19, I think, when she was in my prep.
I think Greg's boys were as quick as they turned 18, they were trained. But yeah, her 19th birthday was right around when her prep ended. And she keeps telling the folks who interview in Wisconsin that we're not allowed to choose anyone who's younger than her because she wants to stay the youngest in the state for as long as possible.
That's a strategy.
We had a coach here in Illinois that took the class at 16 to get his license. He became a range aide, and as soon as he was 18 and eligible, he became a rider coach, and he was probably one of our better rider coaches in the state at 18.
You know, I don't care. I mean, I think that we have all acknowledged that we kind of have a aging out situation going on with rider coaches in general. For me, it's more, does the person want to dedicate the time, and are they motivated, and are they physically aware? Are they aware of what's going to be required physically? Because it seems like unless we do a good job of really driving that point home, even really fit younger people don't have an awareness of the level of fitness that's required, especially on those July days.
I agree with you 100%, Laura.
One of the rationale that's sometimes given for for discouraging folks who are older to be getting into this or not wanting to choose older folks is, well, we're going to spend all this money to train them and they might only be in it for a couple of years. But I've also seen 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds who are trained for this, and then after a couple of years realize, well, they have family and they're having children and so forth, and they're out of it just as well. So saying, well, we don't want to train them because we don't know how long they'd be in it, that could happen at any age.
I agree with that. It seems like retention is just a total crapshoot. There's no rhyme or reason to it that I can tell.
But you know, I agree with all of that, and I think that that comes down to, you know, what can we do as site administrators to make it a wonderful work environment, you know, that people like coming to work and they're compensated enough, you know, to make it worth their while. And of course, life intrudes, like you said, people get married, they have kids, and you know, the old people, I want them to know absolutely what they're getting into physically, because sometimes they just have to tap out from, you know, they can't keep the pace. So
Rick, that makes me think about your discussion you're going to have about time management and range management. Is that a factor that you guys will be discussing? Because, I mean, I know physically, even at my age, and if it wasn't for me losing the weight that I had lost, then I probably still would have been like, you know, I mean, I know work mostly on compact ranges. So is that going to be a thing you guys are going to discuss?
That's a good point. I'm going to jot that down. I'm recalling a site visit I did. It was range exercise 5, and the coach was a bigger guy, and his mobility, you could tell, was, you know, not the best. And he really liked the position he was in, and he kind of stayed there the whole time, like at the center of the range, as opposed to going to the corner, and the riders would ride clockwise, and then you would walk down the long end of the range and coach them as they're riding counterclockwise. This fellow didn't do the walking, and I could kind of understand the way he was, in the shape he was physically. So that would be a good topic to touch on too. Are you up to the task as a coach, physically, mentally? But in this case, it was a physical thing that I don't think the fellow wanted to do all that walking. That was, that's really required.
That is
So,
safety, right? I mean, it's not just for the best rider coach position, but if that person can't physically get there, maybe they can't physically jump out of the way of a motorcycle either.
I had a senior coach a couple of years ago who had started to make decisions based on his physical ability to do stuff, including not being in the right place at the right time, sort of things. And we had the discussion that maybe it was time for him to think about retiring. I didn't want to tell him he had to go, but I said, this is starting to be a little bit of a problem. Maybe it's just time. I mean, he had a long run. He was a good coach, but he just reached a point where he was starting to edge into being a liability. And so he made a decision to take himself out of the loop.
I know of another coach who would paraphrase the cards exclusively. And I knew the fellow for a long time. And I taught with another person who recently taught with him and said, I'm just going to make up his name as Joe. He goes, boy, I taught with Joe, and boy, he really knows this material. He never looks at his cards. I said to the fellow I was teaching with, I said, it's not because Joe knows the cards. He can't see them. He's diabetic. His sight is shot. So he paraphrases everything. And the guy, Eddie, looks at me and goes, hey, shit, I never even thought of that. I said, yeah, he can't see.
Nice picture, Ted.
Chapter event a few years ago, we get all the amateurs out on the ice.
Mike, I don't think it's good to encourage him.
It's curling. What's the worst thing that could happen?
Exactly.
Somebody could spill a beer.
That is a problem.
That
is definitely a problem.
That's alcohol abuse in Wisconsin.
It damages the ice. You put a lot of effort into keeping the ice clean, and beer on ice is a bad thing.
Well, and doesn't it also isn't it sprayed so it has like a bubbly surface?
Yeah. Alcohol and ice are problems.
Wow.
So how about other folks as far as updates that your state or site requires? What else do you have going on?
We're kind of working out the details of our New York thing. It's going to be socially distant, and we don't quite have all the pieces put together yet, but it's going to be some sort of online event.
Out here in the Pacific Northwest, the state basically got out of the instructor licensing business, so I don't think we're going to have any updates at all.
So they are not certifying or saying who can be instructors in the state or not? Is that what you mean?
That's what I mean. Yeah, they did not do any updates this year, and I haven't heard of any plans for next year.
Does Washington do essentially third-party testing, or does students get a waiver after passing the class?
The state has passed along all the testing responsibility to the contractors in the schools, so we do the testing for the state.
So if they're not certifying instructors, how's the quality assurance happen?
As test administrators, we sign a code of professional conduct, and as I say, they didn't do anything this year, so I'm not sure what their plans are for next year, but we had no update. Prior to 2020, when the rules changed, they did do updates every year, and we were required to attend them, but that didn't happen this year. So I don't know, maybe it was just a COVID thing and they just didn't do it.
Is Washington limited on which curricula can be used for waivers?
We have 2 curriculums in play, the MSF and then Brett Tax's Learn to Ride program.
He is an interesting fellow. He started popping up in my YouTube stuff. I started watching some of his stuff.
Yeah, he's an interesting dude.
I mean, he seems exceptionally knowledgeable, and he's clearly rehearsed what he talks about. Is he just fires stuff off smoothly and efficiently.
He is very knowledgeable, and he's very good at letting you know that.
Well,
if you have 2 different classes, what testing is the testing the same for both for the license waiver?
Yeah, the testing is the same for both. It's a state test. It's very similar to the MSF test. In fact, it was adapted from the MSF test, but it is the same test for each curriculum. And we use a 2-test system where the first one test gets you your instruction permit, and then you have to come back for a second round of testing, both knowledge testing and skills testing, to get your full endorsement. So it's a kind of a 2-step, 4-test process.
Is there any issue getting them back for the second test after they've been awarded or earned their instruction permit?
The instruction permit's only good for 180 days, and it can only be renewed one time. So there's a little bit of time pressure. I mean, if they want to continue to ride, they need to circle back and do the endorsement testing.
So I had an interesting student for my last class. I took him out endorsements and things, because here in Alabama, you can be 14 and go and take a 25-question test and have your M endorsement. Yeah, yeah. My range aide actually was 14, and he had turned 14, and then a month later he came and took my class. But now he actually rides absolutely. He's a beautiful rider, but that's just because his dad makes him practice, which is awesome. But I had a lady originally from the UK, and she didn't even know how to drive a car. So she didn't have a driver's license. She didn't have a permit or anything. So the dealership I was working at told her she had to go and get her M endorsement. So she just went and took 25-question test, and then she got her M endorsement. But she didn't know how to drive a car. And I thought about it, and I said, well, I've had a few 14 and 15-year-olds that didn't know how to drive a car that took the class, and so it was encouraging. But yeah, she did well, but I knew exactly which exercise she was gonna get panicky on, and it was exercise 11, part 2 on a compact range. And I mean, it was like stall, 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 and I'd look at her and I'd say, what gear are you in? What gear are you in? And it was because she looks at me and she goes, the first time I drove a car, I got T-boned. And I figured. And so she had never drove a car again. But that was interesting that she could go and get her motorcycle license, come take my class, but not know how to drive a car.
I find that stall factor in that exercise to be a good learning moment, you know, a little reality check for students, you know, because usually by that point we're over the stall thing. But sometimes in their excitement or nervousness, students will stall, and that you can kind of take them back on their reflection on, well, how's that going to work out on the street, you know, and kind of get them think about their self-assessment for moving forward.
And even if you tell them, I'm not going to tell you when to go, they still do this number. Are you going to tell me to go? And I'm like, I'm not going to be standing in the traffic telling you to go. And
I might tell you not to go.
I'd be like, no, stop. You know, so that's when I have my Fred, was that the Fred Sanford moments the most, is on exercise, you know, part 2 of exercise 11. I'm like, oh gosh, okay. But yeah, it was great. I mean, she did really well. She actually ended up being a very, very good rider, and she did really well.
Hey, Belinda, I think a few of your fans here in my office want to see what's written on your shirt.
Yeah, so these are mine and my husband's bike night shirts. Hold on, I'll go down a little bit. It says a house divided, and it says divided by logos, connected by the wind. So I made these for us for bike night because we would show up at either a cycle gear bike night or a Harley bike night, and everyone would give my husband crap because I was riding a Harley and he was riding a V-Star, and so yeah, so I made these shirts for us, and this is what we wear to bike night, and yeah, this is my favorite ones to wear, and I try to tell people I don't really care what you ride as long as you're riding.
That's great. Thanks a lot. Thanks for sharing that. Everybody that I know has a different perspective on what a house divided actually comes from or means in their own house. So,
well, he doesn't watch football, and so he doesn't. You know, I mean, if he does, he watches Alabama. So we're usually at a house anytime a house divided is here in Alabama. It's either Auburn or Alabama or LSU. So, but yeah, so that's where it kind of originally came from, because I'm a traitor to the family. I'm from Louisiana originally, and I'm a Bama fan. So, that's what we are.
thanks for sharing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there is an easy solution to that problem.
What's that?
Buy a KTM. So I tell everybody it's my Harley. It's orange and black, and it's a V-twin. Except that it goes, stops, and turns, which a Harley doesn't.
Hey now. I know.
Oh boy.
Yeah, and here it starts.
Yeah. That's the same.
Depends on the person operating it.
There you go.
Thank you, Chris.
There you
Way to divide the house there, Mike. Good job.
go. Your shirt will be in the mail tomorrow.
Oh, I've got Harley shirts. You know, you can't go to St. Thomas and buy a Kawasaki shirt. So I've got Harley shirts. Actually, one of the other rider coach always gives me a hard time when I wear it.
I was wearing one. I had one I was working at one dealership, because I don't stick with just one dealership. I have like 3 or 4 that I go to, but I was wearing one because I bought my bike from T-Town Harley, and you know, you get the free T-shirt with it. Yeah, your $10,000, you know, your $20,000 T-shirt. Anyways, and I was wearing that T-shirt when I was coaching at another dealership, and he's like, "What are you wearing that shirt for?" I said, "You give me a free T-shirt, and I'll wear yours too." And so they mess with me when I wear different dealership shirts whenever I coach at different places.
I saw for the first time, a Harley commercial for their adventure line. I guess they're starting that and promoting it.
Is that the dual purpose one they're talking about? Yeah.
That's the
Speaking of
Panamera.
Harley, yeah.
I believe
My
so.
sister won one of those, by the way. My sister won one of the classes, by the way.
Oh.
That she was one of the 500 we posted, and I got an email this morning that I actually get $100 gift card too, even though you guys, because I'm not an actual like Harley employee. I'm just contractor, but yeah, my sister's going to take the class and next year, and so I'm super excited about having another riding partner in this area.
So what's the deal with the Panamera? Is anyone interested in that bike?
I'll test ride one. I'd be happy to test ride one.
That
I'd
one
love-
and the Guzzi. I want to ride both of those.
I'm pretty happy with my V-Strom.
Wait, so Chris from Springfield, you only have one motorcycle? Is that what you just said?
No, I have two.
Oh,
I have two right now.
that's a good start. That's okay.
We've had more than that, but I'm down to two right now. I have a V-Strom and a GSX.
Nice. Did all of you not get the memo? The one with the most motorcycles at the end wins, people.
Do trainers count?
Any two wheels, yeah, with the motor. Yes, absolutely.
No,
Do they all
Ron,
have to be
you
running?
and Ron cannot count your 40 motorcycles, Lynn.
No, actual.
I got
owner. You what?
I got 50.
Yeah, no, that doesn't count. Are any of them street legal?
Well, none of them are on the street. They could be street legal.
Then yours are in much better shape than Ron's are.
I was out changing tires today and I was laughing because the campus is deserted and we had 2 feet of snow recently. Most of it's still there. The range looks like a skating rink and there's mountains of snow piled all over and the sun's going down and there's nobody in sight. All I could think of was, this is like Siberia. It's crazy. I was actually comfortable in the container though. It wasn't bad. It wasn't bad working outside.
Hey, Steve, I got a question for you. What was that class that you had at SMSA last year in Grand Rapids?
It was a mini demonstration of the circuit rider course.
How is that class going for you?
Fantastic. It's an absolute blast to teach it. We ran 8 last year total. 2 in specific locations other than California and 6 in California. You need a pretty big footprint to run the full-size range, 800 by 900.
Why was it so much fun?
It's the most dynamic course you can get into in parking lot. It's insured up to 65 miles an hour on the large range. And you get to ride with your students. And the course is designed for real world street application, but on parking lot pavement. And so you are in and out. The teachers are literally allowed to move into the middle of the range and cross halfway across the range and pull in front or behind another student and guide them when they're not working well. And students start out in the morning, I'll say, expecting one thing, and by the end of the day got a completely different perspective and really just had an absolute blast running the class.
It would probably be similar to Jason's real world speed class.
Jason Pridmore?
Herrheim?
Similar. I think they're on a racetrack. Ours is not about how fast you go. It's just that they're allowed to get to that speed, but it's more about how you handle the specific applications. So we have 2 decreasing radiuses, 2 extending radiuses. We have a short back straight that allows them to speed up and then literally have to go into 130 degree, really significantly decreasing turn. So they have to get good at properly entering the turn and then using their brakes almost throughout. We even get a chance to teach a little trail braking.
Is this on their own motors?
Always, yes.
You took the words right out of my mouth, Sarah, because I'm thinking, ooh, that sounds so much fun.
It does. That sounds like a blast.
Yes, it
It
does.
does sound, yeah.
It is an incredibly cool course.
What's the name of it?
Circuit Rider course. It's an MSF certified course. It was created by Dr. Ray Oakes and Nick Einash and Kevin Swanch with a couple of German companies interjecting a fair amount of what I call technical videos and data.
Huh. It's got some names behind it.
Yeah. The course overall addresses just about anything that you could look at in street teaching. There's 9 different techniques for the student to work on, and we ask them to pick one. And they work on that one for the day. We give them a small notebook that they keep with them, and they're on the range and then in the classroom, and on the range and in the classroom. We can run up to 24 students in one day. And so 12 on the range at any one time. It requires 4 teachers, but we run 5. We have one that we call the concierge that deals with all the problems. Somebody's got low air pressure in their tires, or somebody's lost their gear, or something else has happened. We've never had a crash. We have one person drop their motorcycle coming off the trailer one day, and that was about it.
That sounds awesome. I want to look into that. As a student, not even as a rider coach, just as a student, that would be a blast.
Well, we're set up to travel to any state. The team I have, we have a RERP that can float. And so we can travel to your state, and the only thing we need is pavement and students.
The first one might be the issue. I'm trying to think of anywhere around here that you've got 800 by 900 parking lot.
It can be connected parking lots as long as it's a 2-lane connection. So if you've got a series of smaller parking lots that basically fit somewhat of a standard size range, but are broken up by curb delineations with trees or plantings, we can use those. We're allowed to design a range around that.
Any of the colleges around here could do that, because I used to do a SCCA autocross, and they take over a couple parking lots at one of the colleges.
It's the exact same idea. It's auto motorcycling as opposed to autocrossing. It's the same kind of layout.
Is there a prerequisite to take the class, or is there a pre-exercise to determine if they're qualified to ride?
They have to have M certification, legal insurance, and their motorcycle gets specifically hardline teched. We go through everything top to bottom on the bike to make sure there's no issues with the operation of the motorcycle. Even wear bars, for instance, they're usually not allowed on, and we have a whole bunch of specific information that is provided to the student weeks before, so they're ready and know what they're looking at when they show up for their motorcycle to be qualified. But it's really neat. We actually had an issue come up one of the first classes. At that time last year, we had a basic school as well, and many of the basic students wanted to take the CRC because that's actually how they found us. Was we were on fairgrounds and you could see it from the highway, and so they signed up to take the CRC only to find out they first had to get a license. So we talked to Dr. Ray, and he said it's allowed, and insurance checked it out too. A basic graduate who got their M certification on Monday basically can take the class on Tuesday. And it's absolutely fantastic for that person. They've never been on the street per se, but they get to actually practice street without getting to the street. And no one's cordoned off, meaning there isn't fast riders and slow riders. No one's allowed to pass. Everyone has to keep a safe following distance. We monitor it very carefully. And so everyone gets to ride their own ride on the parking lot. It's just spectacular. MSF invented one heck of a really cool product.
So obviously everybody has to be working on the same exercises at the same time, but they all have individual goals for that exercise?
Correct. So
interesting.
Anything from head and eyes management to body positioning to how hard they hold onto the motorcycle to how they're going to operate the brakes. Things of that sort can be their choices along with many others. One of the choices is actually just learning how to properly breathe, so you actually don't panic your way around the range.
That sounds awesome. I am really interested in that.
At Grand Rapids riding that, and I don't know what exercise it was, but they had us going around the range, holding a middle line of down the range without using clutch or brakes through the corners. It's all just throttle control to maintain your line.
That's the third exercise of the day, and it's all about using the proper gear so that you can control your motorcycle without having to overuse the tool. Did you who did you ride with, Chris? Who was your lead instructor?
It was Ray Pierce.
Yeah. I don't know if any of you know Ray, who runs Missouri. He's one of our teachers. It's just so much fun because the biggest deal for the teacher is watching the mirrors or watching the student in front of them. But they just have to hold their specific line, and then the student has the choice to work with that or watch it. And the student that wants to watch it can just hang back and screw up all they want within their space, but learn what the teacher's doing and then choose to follow them. So we do 2 or 3 laps of that sort regularly with the students, and it dramatically improves anybody's riding that comes in. We even had a couple of very senior people who came out learning a lot about body position.
Yeah, it was very interesting to have the instructor go through the course. They were leading the exercise for a couple of laps, and then they'd drop off in the middle of the range somewhere and just sit, and then he'd see something and zip in between 2 riders or cut out after riders and then sit again.
We cordon off the path of travel with about 350 cones at 18 inches. So it's very specifically clear where you're supposed to be and where you're not. We're going to be doing it again at this year's SMSA in Boise.
In Boise?
Do you use any sort of communication devices between bikes, or is it all just hand signals?
My team all has Senna, but very seldom do we actually use them. There's one teacher on the range who's in charge of the whole range, and it's a flag system similar to a racetrack, but without any of the real race elements. There's a black flag, there's a red flag, there's a yellow flag, there's a checkered flag. But the coaches are meant to always check back to home port. We have what's called a hot pit lane, where people pull in and out of the course. And during the exercise, if they're feeling either exhausted or have questions, they can pull right in. And then, of course, the coaches bring them in to talk to them and then take them right back out. But everything's directed by that one person who stands at the hot pit lane.
That sounds awesome. I really want to try this.
It's just a ton of fun, an absolute blast.
I was part of an early test of this. A group were selected to go to Barber Motorsports Park, and Kevin Schwantz had put together some stuff. It was very early. They were just trying stuff out, really, but it was a heap of fun. It sounds like it's gone in a really interesting direction. It was also one of the coldest rides ever. Our range day got delayed in Alabama because of snow, and we had to wait for the snow to clear before we could get on the range. It was pretty freaking cold out.
Wow.
Was it 1993, was it?
Probably, I couldn't say, but it probably thereabouts, yeah.
It took a long while to come to fruition, and we're still, as far as I know, we're the only civilian team in the country certified to teach it. There's a couple of military teams that teach it on military bases, but our company is certified to teach it anywhere in the country that we can find pavement, and have Kathy Rim sign off on what we're doing for design and layout.
So you said you have a date and a place that you know for sure already, at least one in 2021?
We have 3 set up that are tentative, one in Colorado, one in California, and one potentially on the East Coast. But the East Coast one I'm not allowed to talk about yet. The Colorado one, if it comes to fruition, will be May or June. The California is probably July or August.
Okay, look, now you said June. Now look, I'm gonna tell you, it's gonna be a total God thing if you tell me it's either the week before, or like the second and a half. Was it what day? Do you know which week or when?
In June, you're talking about?
Yeah, in Colorado.
I think it's the third week in June we've asked for.
Look, that's a God thing, y'all, because that's when I'm gonna be in Colorado. It's like I'm coming the last week in June is when I have a class in Fort Collins. I'm going to a grief class there the last week in June. See, and I was trying to debate if I was gonna ride out there or not. How about that?
Solve that problem.
There we go. Can you type in like so that everybody knows like how do we get information on, and then for other people that like watch the recordings, how can we get information on signing up, getting information about where you're going to be and all that?
I'll get the information to Don or Rita to distribute to all of you. Our dates aren't hard yet, and we have to wait for the sites to confirm them. And with COVID, no one's been eager to confirm anything. We had, I think, 10 sites planned for 2020, and every one of them we canceled. Just consecutively kept on canceling them because we don't gather at more than really 10 people in an area at any one time, but no one's comfortable with having 24 people at an event, regardless of the gathering. Because of the way we teach it, even in the classroom, everyone could be more than 6 feet apart, but it still wasn't something that people who were liable at their properties for it were eager to let us do things. And that was fine. We didn't get a lot of student interest either this last year.
If you were to hypothetically do one on the East Coast, where hypothetically, what region might be?
Probably about 2 hours south of generally where you are.
Hypothetically.
Hypothetically.
So that would be like the southern Pennsylvania border.
Good luck in guessing. I honestly was asked not to expose it because they.
I'll make sure Don edits it out. But I'm just wondering if it's a reasonable distance from me. I'd be significantly interested.
We're involved in all we teach. All Be Crash Free does is advanced teaching. So we teach ARCs, CRCs, BBBs, UBBs. We just got certified this year in the new ADV course from MSF, but we haven't been able to teach it yet because the insurance hasn't come through. We don't do basic anymore. We do rider coach preps. Both Ray Pierce and I are rider coach trainers. So we'll run preps regularly, but we don't do basic courses anymore. So we don't teach in one location, and we're in Idaho where the curriculum is not MSF. It is basically a derivative of the Oregon curriculum, and it's the Idaho STAR program. That's why I wasn't speaking to updates, because I actually have no idea what happens here. But that we just float around the country doing those different advanced courses, along with some others. We teach Street Masters with Walt Fulton and Nancy Foote, which is either on street or usually on a racetrack in California.
That sounds cool. So I've also been really interested in getting any information on the ADV class.
Oh, I'm so psyched about that. You have classes for people like me, attention deficit disorder people? This is spectacular, man. I am all over that. Oh, did I just jump in and interrupt? I'm sorry, ADD.
No, Robin, you're fine, Robin.
Oh, that was a low blow.
There's nothing much about it right now. There's nothing much about the ADV course yet. They finished the course. We went through it with Alan Wood and Mark Wing in January of this year. And 7 of us got certified. And we plan on offering it as soon as possible, but the insurance hasn't been completed in a proper manner to make sure that all liabilities are covered. So there's no way to put it out to the public yet. So we haven't done anything with it.
Yeah, definitely get your information to Don so he can distribute it somehow. I'm really interested in those 2 things.
Sure. When we know something, I'll make sure Don can share with everyone.
Or do you have a website or?
We do. Our website, we just took it down about 2 weeks ago. We're rebuilding it over the next 4 weeks, 5 weeks. Otherwise, I'd direct you there. There's just nothing there right now.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Becrashfree.com.
Say that one more time.
B-E crash free.com. Becrashfree.
Is there anything in your course that you could see trickle down or incorporate into what we're doing at the basic level?
Oh, yes, everything is building blocks still from basic on up. And so anybody taking this course improves and one of the things that I've found regularly that's happened to teachers is that as they take this course, they get better at their observation and feedback and really are able to do ochre extremely well. Because of them either watching other riders while they're participating and both trying to handle their own needs while seeing what else is happening was one of the major feedbacks we got from folks. But another one was simply being under professional observation while riding made a difference to how they got their feedback, which then translated to them being able to communicate to the student on the range in a BRC. Great question. One of the neatest things to me about the CRC more than anything else is once someone goes 1 or 2 laps around the circuit, all their fear goes away and they're ready to just start learning. The circuit doesn't present itself to be challenging unless they choose to go faster than they're comfortable with. And the major teaching of the course is everything you should be doing is at 70% of whatever you think you can ride at. So if you can ride at 20 miles an hour comfortably around the whole course, then you should be doing it at 16 to 17 miles an hour. And we literally direct it that way. And so everyone takes a step back in essence, but then grows 3 or 4 steps forward by that opportunity.
Sounds like the old pie chart and reserve. Always have reserve for your traction and your braking from. Oh God, what was that? The
ERC.
What was it called then?
It was the ERC, the Experienced
ERC,
Rider
right.
Course.
Right, in the old ERC days, yeah.
It came from RSS days to ERC days. Yep.
Yeah.
Wasn't there a diagram someplace of that in the old rider handbook? Wasn't there a diagram of that pie?
Oh, pie charts. Pie charts were huge.
Even carried through to 13. Yeah, it was there.
Whoa.
So Steve, I can understand when you say about like the instructors that take the class and are people that become really nervous they are experienced riders, but then they have those people watching that kind of thing and how that really helps, and they just kind of calm down after just a few laps. I remember when I took I took my ARC. I took it, these are rider coaches that I worked with that are now I'm a student of theirs again, which is funny because actually one of them was my BRC instructor. And I was super nervous. I'm like, wait a minute, I just went through, I've been coaching with these guys. I'm a fellow rider coach, but I'm like, they know, they've been doing these things. And it took about, you're right, but about 2-3 laps around. Then I was like, why am I nervous? I got this. And yeah, but each time I was like, am I going to totally screw this up? Am I going to make an ass of myself? And then I was like, oh, I'm just having a good time. And then, so yeah, I think that's going to be interesting. It's going to be a lot of fun.
It's one of my most favorite things being a student, because you immediately then put yourself back in your customer's shoes. You're no longer outside of that world. And that's what's really neat to me, is you can feel what they're feeling in the moment when you're looking at them.
And we kind of go back earlier, we were talking about something about riders and coaches, and I think it was Rick said something, sometimes it just ends up being a paycheck for some people. And I noticed when I do get to ride with, coach with our coaches, ones that forget to ride at the novice level. And, there's a difference in a student saying, a BRC student saying, man, you make that look easy, and saying, oh my God, I have to do it that way. And that's when, you might want to have a conversation with your fellow rider coach. Say, you know what, can we ride that one more time, just a little bit slower? And so I think that's been a big eye opener for me, is when I coach with other coaches, is seeing how they ride their demos makes a big difference. Are they riding at a novice level, just the perfect novice level, or are they riding as an experienced rider?
That's really cool. Great observation. I get the opportunity to ride with Walt Fulton, and Walt Fulton is, as he'll say, is approaching 80. And he just became a BRCU rider coach this summer at one of the California rider coach preps I ran. And he owns Street Masters. And this guy races in AMA regularly and is on I think, don't quote me on the year, but I think it's a 69 250cc pure Harley Davidson race bike. And he'll get out on a course like the Streets of Willow and be running with guys in straightaways doing 130, 140. And I've gotten on track with him, and I can't keep up with him. He's so smooth and so fast. So to that point of the earlier question of age, I think it comes down to passion. Are you wanting to do the work? And if you are, it doesn't matter how old you are.
Well, thank you for that, Steve.
You should have come to our winter update last year when Axe was there, because I don't know if you ever met Gloria, but Gloria is a prime example of that.
I have met Gloria in California, but not in Illinois.
Yeah, she's a remarkable woman.
Yeah, I always kind of look at her as the definition of what our motorcycle industry is as a whole. Whether you're talking, doesn't matter what manufacturer, it doesn't matter who you are or where you're from. She's just a consistent rider, and she defines it so perfectly no matter what.
Mm-hmm. I had an unfortunate phone call with Gloria after the update. About a week or two after she got back, she slipped at church and fell and broke her hip. And she was just absolutely heartbroken that she wouldn't be able to ride to Daytona or to Sturgis this year.
That stinks. Is she recovering?
I think she did recover. She was in rehab for a while, and then I talked to her when she got back home.
Good to hear.
You told that story about the students saying, oh, do I have to write it like that? I had a coach, not at my site, but a coach at another site years ago was telling me that the students were all gathered around and they rode the demonstration for old exercise 5, which was riding the perimeter and then circles in the middle. And the student watched the demo, looked at the coach, turned around and walked to her car and drove away. They were like, not doing that.
The young lady I was telling you about that took my class, she had a moment with the exercise 5 whenever I came in with the demo, because she's seen that she had to pick the speed up. And that's when I realized, that's when I had my aha moment with her, was when she stepped away from her bike. And I was like, you okay? And she's like, just in a minute. And I mean, she had tears and everything. And I mean, I've told you guys before, I'm fine with tears. I don't really care about crying too much, but cry if you got to cry. And that's when I realized the speed was going to be her thing, and having to get that speed up and then slow it down and all of that, that's whenever I realized she did that. And I was like, I rode it perfectly. But that's when, yeah, she did that. She walked away and I was like, oh Lord, here we go.
A bazillion years ago, back in the RSS days, there was an optional exercise. I think it was exercise 22, which was basically the offset weaves. And we normally would finish our day one with that. And then an offset weave was part of the skills evaluation. Well, the weather had turned to crap, and so we finished our day prior to getting that exercise, and the next day we forgot to do it. So we set up the skills evaluation, and I'm reading the instructions, and I look up, and the whole bunch of students are standing there, their mouths are dropped open. They're like, holy crap, we got to do this. And I turned around, I thought something was happening behind me, that they had their mouths open, and I see the offset weave, and then the penny dropped. It's like, oh wait, we didn't even do this exercise yet. It's like, all right, time out. We have one more exercise to do. And they were very relieved.
I know I've had students that were disappointed that we don't get to do the offset weave more than one time. And they'll say, did we get to do that one again? And I was like, no, this is the only opportunity we really have. Come back 15 minutes early for lunch, then we'll play. Hey, come on, come back.
I'm really encouraged by the offset weave in the current, the BRCU, because, in the old days, we used to have to really beg students to try to use their friction zone and, incorporate that. And now they really just dive right in and they do it. And, because of the things that are introduced earlier, they're a little more comfortable, and I'm really very heartened by how they just jump right in with it.
I always say the exercise 5 and 11. Now they do tease because I'll say, oh, this is a fun one. And they say, well, every time you say it's more fun, that means it's going to be harder. And I'm like, exactly. But I always tell her, I say, I have a favorite on day 1 and a favorite on day 2. And this is my favorite. And that's because you get to use both. You really dig into both skills, right? You got to do those slower. You got to be able to control that. And then you get to just relax and enjoy and start to get that speed up a little bit more and all that. Those are, I always have to say that's my favorite. I know, so those are my 2 favorite. What are y'all's favorite ones on the BRC? What are y'all's favorite one that you guys knock down, drag out? I'm writing this demo. This is my demo.
I really don't care who rides what, but I have to say I really enjoy, as a coach, the results of exercise 5 and exercise 11, because things start to fall into place, and especially as we go to I'm getting my numbers mixed up. Let me think about this for a second. Exercise, it'd be 12, I guess, in a full size range. When they're doing the lane change in the circuit, and they're not thinking so much about the circuit, they're thinking about the lane change, and the circuit becomes a little more natural. I love to watch how they relax and things just drop into place, and you can see those aha connections happening in their brains. And same thing with 5. They've had a bunch of pieces, and now they get to put the pieces all together, and there's a fun factor, and everybody relaxes and things happen. It's good.
I was going to mention about exercise 5, and I guess it was the old 6 with the offset weaves, is that as coaches, we really ride, maybe we ride the far side, then the near side, then the far side again. We're doing a limited amount in the demo, as opposed to how much physical work they're doing over 20 minutes between the offset weave and the clutch control, and it can be fatiguing. I had an opportunity to ride it as a student, and my observation was, wow, this is a lot of work. You can use up a lot of energy or fatigue them, especially the forearm with the clutch control. The more you run it, you can really overrun that exercise.
Likewise, 9, I think.
You said 9, Laura?
Laura, did you say 9 for overrunning it?
Yes, I think students have a tendency to get that same kind of hand fatigue situation going on there if you let that one go on and on and on.
Yes, I agree. Haven't you guys seen people build it up and do well and then start to digress at a certain point with 9? I had it before, and then they start to digress. There is some fatigue that you can actually see set in. You guys see that?
Yeah, and I think with 9, you reach a point where the people that are going to get it right at that moment have already got it. And the people that aren't going to get it, they'll benefit from all the cornering exercises we're about to do. And then when they come back and revisit it in exercise 14, they do better, you know? So if people haven't achieved perfection in 9, I tell them, don't worry, we're about to do a whole bunch of exercises that are going to make this easier when you see it next time. And they have a better go around in 14.
That's a good perspective on that.
I also think in 9 that mental fatigue is a big deal, that they wear themselves out in between their ears more so than potentially with their body. And then it relates to their body after that, after they've worn themselves out mentally, because now they're hanging onto the bike too tight or trying too hard or things of that nature. And I think that's where you really see the drop off of the quality of skill.
And I think coaches contribute to that, frankly, sometimes by overcoaching and you know, or building it up into a thing, you know, before they've had a chance to try it, instead of just saying, hey, here's our next exercise. We're going to write some tight circles and, you know, go out there and do it. And instead of turning it into this big Megillah that they got to, you know, this hump that they have to get over. I think really if coaches kind of downplay that exercise, it tends to run better.
I have to agree that overcoaching is a big deal in 9.
Yeah, they also have the ones that show up and their friends have already told them about exercise 9. You know, they're like, oh my gosh, the box. And you're like, what box? There's a box on my, what box? I didn't see a box. And yeah, I think those are the ones that that show up. And I completely agree, Lynn. It's just another exercise to have a good time. And also the ones that put so much pressure on themselves because they know it's on the eval, you know, and my favorite thing at the beginning of 14 is to say, hey, I have a secret. You only have to do 1. And they're like, what? And I'm like, you only have to do 1. And I think getting them to stop freaking out about that one exercise on the eval, it's going to be the most horrifying thing. And I'm like, you know what? I want to know that you can swerve and you can stop, because I don't want you hitting my kid when he runs out into the street. That's what I want to know. I can watch you do a U-turn, but stop freaking out. And so, yeah, everybody put so much emphasis on that one exercise 2. I mean, that eval number 2. And I'm like, just calm down. It's just one left U-turn and that's all it is. Don't worry about it.
In New York, if you don't do the course to get your license, you do an on-street road test, which includes circles and figure 8s. And in the on-street road test, if while you're doing your circles and figure 8s, you put your foot down, you fail the road test. Done. You know, so I tell the students, hey, you know, we're going to do a U-turn, but this is not like the DMV road test. If you put your foot down, it's just points. It's not, you know, the end. So I try to give them a little chill factor with, you know, don't obsess about this. This is just a piece of your evaluation, and it only counts for a small part. And, you know, you can nickel and dime yourself into failure, but don't obsess about it. This is not the DMV road test.
Somewhat of a side story.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No,
go ahead.
No, I was going to say, it's just 5 quick things. You just show me what you've learned today. That's all that it is. And, you know, people say, what about that test at the end? I'm like, I don't have a test at the end. I have an evaluation of what you've done today. That's all you're going to show me. And they're like, oh, okay. And I have test anxiety, so I have to like talk myself, and like those kind of things, like those positive mindset things really work. And so I just kind of brush it off as no big deal. And so I think it's kind of, that's helped me help them stop freaking out.
Somewhat of a side story, we were doing a ARC for a state program. And so there were, I think, 25 or 30 coaches there, and they were getting run through some of the exercises. And I assume you're all familiar with the ARC to know decreasing radius circles that come down and go through 4 cones and out. As the class was discussing what they were going to do for the day before anybody started riding, one of the coaches literally spoke up and said, well, that's the flaming circles of death, right? And she meant it. She wasn't saying it as she thought it was a joke or a funny. She actually felt that that was something that she'd never be able to accomplish. And we got out there with the first group, and everyone had that mental position, and everyone missed the second gate the first time through. And then we took them out and walked them through it all the way, and then they could ride it. So sometimes just making that mental break again is something that makes all the difference, even to experienced coaches who've seen it and operated, and in some cases had taken it a while back and still had trouble with it.
Years ago in the RSS, the decreasing radius turns was an optional exercise, and we seldom did it. And I was teaching a class one day with a guy, and we had an awesome group, and it wasn't a full class, and so we were a little ahead of schedule. And he says, "Why don't we do an optional exercise?" I said, "Oh, that's awesome." He says, "How about decreasing radius turns? Look," he says, "there's a 2x4 over there." I said, "Perfect." I said, "I'll start talking. You go set up the range." And he runs over to where this alleged 2x4 is, and he trots back a minute later, and he says, "It's made out of cement." So we didn't do decreasing radius turns because it wasn't a 2x4. It was a parking barrier.
But all you got to do is blip the throttle right before making contact, right?
That would be a different exercise. No, my bad. It's the same exercise. It was pretty serious, though.
Well, I definitely learned you talking about that. Chris makes me giggle this year, because, you know, we always kind of have, oh, there's a curve there, they'll be fine. Oh, I learned this year that it doesn't matter if there's a curve there. You're just still going to go, uh-oh, learn how to jump out of the way, right? I mean, you got to be physically fit, because it doesn't matter if there's a curve there at times. So.
I took a picture one day of students crossing over the obstacles, and one of them came out kind of good. So I emailed it to the student after the class, and he says, "That was the one time in the whole class I was looking up." And it was a really awesome picture. So he was really happy to have it.
Well, Lynn, that brings up a good discussion right there I had with another rider coach about taking pictures. I've got students that want to take pictures, some that, you know, of course you always have to sign those, can you take pictures? And I think that's been the biggest difference about where we coach. We have a little bit more leeway with that. And I know I've had good experiences making sure I take pictures to send to the students, but I have other rider coaches that say, no, never, never, never pull a camera out. And so I'll open that up for discussion with you guys. What do y'all think?
So does Rider's Edge automatically waiver everybody for picture taking?
Riding Academy for HD? Yeah, no, so you have to ask, but no, these are more like, I'm going to take, you know, I'll take a picture with you next to your bike, or I may video something like that. You know, like my daughter will do some videos with her GoPro, and people say, hey, can, you know, I tell them, I email those to them, and that student only gets it, you know, that kind of thing. And, but it's never on day one. They get I take a picture on the last, exercise 6 is they're getting ready to go back into staging, and they all got the big grin on their face. And that's the only picture I take on day 1. And then day 2, they're a little bit more relaxed. And so I get a couple more pictures of them, and maybe a video, like on exercise 11, you know, and then that's it. But they all get those. I want a Google Drive and I send them to each of them. I know I've gotten some really great feedback from that. And so, like I said, I don't know how other, you know, I do it as a personal coach.
I think that sounds awesome. I've never done that and I've never considered doing that, but I bet they just love that. I mean, I always think it's funny because sometimes they'll get together at the end of the class and like take pictures with each other and with their bikes and as a class. And I think that's like awesome. But the idea that they would have pictures of themselves participating, I think that's a cool thing. Good for you. Also,
Our
people
site
charge
out
a
here
lot
in
of money for that at
Colorado.
the track.
Sorry, I think I stepped on you there a little bit, Laura. Anyway, out here in Colorado, or at least at my site in Colorado, in the springs, we have a model release that we have all of our students sign at the beginning of class, because we do one of our folks that works in the office is a professional photographer, and the company asked her to come out and take pictures and videos and stuff like that of the students. But as far as our state requirements don't allow us to take coaches to use cell phone or video or picture devices while class is actively going on. So it's a little hard to, you know, kind of whip out that phone and do stuff. But I've done a couple of individual coaching sessions with folks that have asked to come back and when they're struggling with a certain topic or certain skill, I'll just pull out the phone and pull up a video, do slow motion video, do other types of things, and then just kind of share it with them on my iPad on the range, and just kind of, you know, especially when you get to the things about, you know, where you look and how you move the bike specifically in curves. That was the most recent one that I did, and I must have taken probably about 10 minutes worth of video for this guy to get it. And after we reviewed that video and multiple times, finally we got him to understand how important it was to actually look and how that vision translates to what the bike is doing, because they don't get to necessarily see that from their perspective sitting on the seat. So giving them that lead in of what the video actually looks like when you do the technique properly, then, you know, drive on smiles, you know, bigger than the Grand Canyon. So
that's a good tool sometimes to use with coaches to video if you're having a professional development or certification course of some kind, to video their demos, because they'll swear up and down that they're turning their head or leaning or whatever it might be, like especially advanced rider course where you're trying to show body positioning, and they'll swear up and down they're showing the correct body position. And when you show them the video, it's kind of hard for them to deny that. No, the students, I don't care what it feels like to you, that's not what the students are seeing. They're seeing a totally different body position, and regardless of how it feels, what the student sees, it's what's most important.
So Rita, I had my husband, that's what kind of got me in thinking about it, is I had my husband video me do demos when I was we were on lunch, and I said, hey, video these for me, and so that I can see them. And so, yeah, so that's literally what made me think about it, was that's exactly it. I think that's a great idea to be able to video, be open to that, have someone do that for you, and just say, hey, look, you know, let me watch myself do this and see where it is. That's where this all started for me. Was I wish I would have had a picture of my very first class, but then as a rider coach, I made my husband come out, and my poor husband is getting voluntold to do so much stuff when he doesn't get paid to do anything, but he gets plenty of that time. But yeah, I think that's a great idea.
I was doing
I'm sorry, go ahead, Lynn.
I was going to say, I was doing an ERC years ago with my old boss, and he had a Valkyrie. He was demoing the swerve, and he came in at a normal speed on the first one, and he did it again, came in really hot. I was like, oh, slow down. And afterwards he said to me, well, I didn't feel like it was deflecting. I said, trust me, it was deflecting. It was perfect, you know, the slow way. And he says, it didn't feel that way. I said, here, I'll show you. And I hopped on his bike, and I did it at the normal speed, and I did it at the fastest speed. He says, oh, wow, it really did deflect. But he has those fat tires, you know, he just didn't have a perception of it. So I think videoing ourselves is a really great idea.
As Rita mentioned, we regularly video in our classes, and we've told the student, you need to turn your head here, or you need to look at this time. And they're believing, truly believing that they're looking at that time. And then you show them the video of when they're actually looking, and it's a half a second to a full second later. And it really hits home for them. No matter how much they trust and believe you, the video supports that. I will say one other thing from the rider coach trainer side. My understanding is we're not allowed to publicize full exercises on video at all, neither by the students or us. Portions or parts or small things are fine, but my understanding is we're not allowed to post in any way full MSF exercises as they're being operated. So just throwing that out there.
Do you find that your BRC students sometimes turn their heads too soon and they initiate the turn early because they're looking too soon?
I find rider coach candidates to do that all the time.
I think coaches misinterpret exaggerated head turns as turning their heads too early frequently.
I agree, Ted.
And unfortunately, if we do that, then the students do the same thing.
You know, there's that slide in the slide deck which breaks out search, evaluate, execute into the smaller bubbles, and it gets to the execute part. One of the things that's highlighted is well timed. And so when I'm coaching on the side in exercise 11, you know, I try to bring out, hey, you know what? Remember in the classroom, we saw that slide, it talked about in the execute, things are well timed. Well, here's an example of where well timed comes into play. You know, the slowing has to happen before the turn. The look has to happen after the slowing. And we can kind of talk about the sequence of the events and try to put them into place with what's happening out on the range.
Ted, am I remembering correctly? You ride with Lock and Lean?
Yes, sir.
I think I met you in Rockford at one of the competitions.
Yeah, probably the early ones at the dealership.
Yeah, I think so, where we went down the back hill, the slow ride down the back.
Yeah. That was entertaining.
Yep.
He's tightened things up since then, so.
That's cool. I don't follow them much anymore, but I know he's got a channel out there.
Yeah, we're waiting for next season to start, so.
Ted, do you know Sherry?
Yes, very well.
She was in my rider coach, my HD rider coach prep class, and she is like, I always tease her. I tell her, I want to be you when I grow up. I don't know, even though I think we're the same age, and because she is, it just absolutely amazes me how tiny she is, and she can control that big old bike the way she does. I mean, it absolutely amazes me. With she showed up with these heels that were like, I mean, because you know she's so tiny. I tell her you want to put her in my pocket, but she is absolutely amazing. She is, I love her to death. And so,
Yeah, she really turned it up this year.
She's
worked
amazing.
with a couple guys out of Iowa and put a lot of time in to get her skills up. So.
Wait, didn't someone say earlier that those bikes you can't do much with them? You can't turn them tight? Something to that effect, Mike?
Yeah, I think he was Harley bashing earlier. It's kind of like male bashing. We try not to do that. It's tough, but you know, restraint. Oh wait, I'm in the ADD class anyways. So.
Well, Ron, it's nice of you to show up, and it's nice to see that the dog's wearing the collar this time instead of you. Good to know you stopped chewing on your feet.
There we go. Hello, everyone. Sorry I'm late. It's some family things to take care of. It's nice seeing you again too, Rita. Here, there. How's that, huh? I can't get away from her. She just won't leave me alone. It's just, I've gone to the dogs.
Why is she in the cone of shame?
Because she had a little procedure last week.
Okay. So she's okay then. She's okay.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay.
A couple more days and then we can take it off. But she's actually watching you guys as we're sitting here. We watch Westerns together, so it's pretty cool.
Should be training her to pick up cones and put cones down on yellow dots.
No, no. She's too little for that. Besides, you'd probably kick her.
Nature's little speed bump.
There
If
you
it fits
go.
under my front tire, I don't worry about it.
There you go. There you go. So
That's
what
in
have
the
I missed?
ADV
Anything
class, right,
exciting?
Steve?
Say that again.
So that's in the ADV class, right? If it fits under your front tire, you don't have to worry about it.
You're muted, Steve.
I think I'm going to be careful on what I subscribe to in regards to the group conversation on your topic.
Don't worry, Don edits all of this out anyways.
The old joke used to be, if you could eat it in one meal, it's small enough to hit.
Belinda, what does porcupine taste like?
Yeah, I know. We don't do porcupine. We do armadillos down here. Now, our speed bumps are armadillo or possums, and or some people call them opossums. They actually see the O in front of it. But yeah, yeah. If you hit a possum, man, they're evil looking. They're mean.
I had a porcupine on my range this year. I was riding the exercise 3 demo and I was heading downrange. And everyone's watching me. And while they're watching me, a porcupine appears and is walking across the other end of the range. And I turned around and I look up and there's this animal on the range. It's heading right towards the open container door. So I aborted the mission and rode over there and beat my horn and scared it away. But I'm like, where did that come from? And no one had seen where it came from because everyone was watching me. So it's the first time I've A, seen a porcupine in the daytime, B, seen a porcupine on the range. And I have no idea. I have so many questions about the porcupine. Where does it live? Where was it going? What was it doing there? But I haven't seen him since. And since then, I've taken to closing the door of the container because just in case, right?
So a friend of mine hit one while riding. It actually hit his boot. And apparently the quills will penetrate quite far into a heavy leather adventure riding boot. I imagine they would do damage to a tire.
Our site years ago was down at Floyd Bennett Field, which is right off of Breezy Point, right on the water in Brooklyn. And routinely the seagulls would drop clamshells onto the range to break them. And so you'd occasionally have to clean up the clamshells. And one day I was teaching with a guy and all of a sudden he's like gimping around and I'm like, what's the matter? What's the matter? I run over to him and he's holding on to my shoulder. He says, there's something sticking me in the foot. And he kind of bent over and he had stepped on a fish bone and it had penetrated his shoe in such a way that it actually went right through and was sticking him in the foot. And I'm like, man, that is like some pretty serious fish bone. We had never seen anything like that, but he survived, you know, but it was like, holy crap, what the hell?
our Mobile range is on the Gulf, and the seagulls will drop crabs, the little crabs on there. And the first time I coached on that range, I was with another coach that had been down there before, and I'm like, why are there crabs on our range? And he's like, well, right here near the Gulf, like it's literally on the other side of the trees. And I didn't even think about that. So that's what they would do. They eat them, no, drop the shells, and you'll just crunch. So.
I got to figure out how to make the puppy my background. She's cuter than I am.
I was going to say we should take bets on which of you two falls asleep first.
Wow, that was cold.
You can put your money on the dog.
You weren't here last week, but Don's threatening to make a blooper reel, and guess who features in that blooper reel, Ron?
Oh, great. Well, yeah, if that's my claim to fame, what the heck? Everybody's got to be known for something, right?
Well, I have to say that Dennis was an inspiration for a poll that I'm going to do. What about Zooms? Like, what are the reasons you do virtual backgrounds? It's like, 1, are you hiding this creepy dolls? 2, are you in the bathroom? What was the third one that my husband and I came up with? Oh, well, for us, 3, naked children. And so, yeah, what is your virtual background hiding? And so, but yeah, I was thinking about Dennis and how the creepy dolls that are his wives. And so.
Can we take guesses on your dog's name, Ron?
Sure, go ahead. It starts with R.
I was going to go with Cinnamon or Muffin.
No.
Reggie.
No. It's a female.
You know, it's
Rose?
always weird, Belinda. You said Dennis's creepy dolls who are his wives.
Oh,
Now that's funny.
Commas.
That's funny.
That's the reason we have them.
Okay, everybody give up.
Rosie? Is it?
Close.
Regina?
No.
Billet.
What?
Ruby.
I'm sorry, say it again.
Ruby.
No, it's
Rosalie.
4 letters. It is 4 letters. She's actually being very quiet tonight, sitting here watching you all. That's pretty good. How about Roxy? I didn't name her, so. She's actually sitting here very quiet.
She's probably confused by the way the noise is. Oh, there she is. Hey, Roxy.
Belinda, did you say something about naked kids in a Zoom?
Yes. So so as you guys know, my son has ASD, and clothes are an option sometimes in our house. We have to have, because anyways, we just do that. So sometimes when I'm on a Zoom call, if he's in the room or if I'm having to be in the living room, I have to put a virtual background up because we never know if there's going to be a naked behind that runs past or something. So Yeah, funny story. My daughter has some friends over, and there was a young man that came, and the other friends had been here before, and it was this young man's first time at our house. And I told him right before we came in, I said, "Oh, I forgot to tell you that pants are optional in our house." And he goes, "What? The pants are optional?" And I said, "Well, no, only for my son." So you have to, you know, we jokingly say when you come to visit our home, if you're allergic to dogs, cats, or naked children, or autism, pretty much, you don't come to the house because you don't know what you're going to get. So, yeah,
Fair
so
enough. Fair
that's
enough.
why. Yeah, that's usually it's. Hopefully, most of the time he's the only naked one, you know, running around. But you never know.
We did a Zoom Thanksgiving with my kids, and my 1.5-year-old granddaughter came into where my daughter was sitting, and she said, "There's poop on the floor." And all of a sudden, my daughter put the camera on her, and she had removed her diaper. And my daughter just looked in the screen and said, "I have to go now." And there's just a shot of my daughter turning around, and there's this baby and 2 dogs, and ew, really bad. And the camera went off, and the rest of us were just like, "Oh God." Just all felt bad, and there was nothing to say. And my daughter was gone, and so was the poop and the baby and the 2 dogs. So, yeah.
I'm dying to know if dogs have the same affinity for toddler poop as they do for cat poop.
That's hilarious. So, Lynn, you're still here. Good, because I wanted to tell you that my question that I asked earlier, would you hire a rider coach that's your age? I interviewed a woman today to become a rider coach, and she was my age, which is your age. And I kept thinking to myself, if I was in her seat, would I be thinking this, am I too old to be here? I kept questioning myself, talking to this woman who was exactly my age, exactly your age, Lynn. It was like, it was surreal, really.
Well, I think it's really important that people understand the physicality of it. You're going to be on your feet. You're going to be on your feet for a really long time, in whatever the weather dishes out. You know, it could be really, really hot. It could be cold. It could be raining. You know, it could be all those combinations that happen. And, you know, to me, that's part of the whole shadowing / interview process, is to let them have a real flavor of it, you know, before they commit to being in a prep. Come shadow a class, come see what it's all about. And oh, and by the way, you know, wear your walking shoes, and you know, so that there's no illusions about it, because really it is a little bit of an endurance test to go through a class. And you know, it's more so as we get older, I will admit, and people need to know that. And it's certainly not for everybody, you know, but I wouldn't rule somebody out automatically because of their age, because, you know, I am what I am, and I'm still doing it. And, you know, I survive by the end of the day usually. So.
Well, Laura spoke to that earlier, but frankly, when I wanted to become a rider coach now 20 years ago, I never imagined standing there hours later in sleet at 38 degrees outside. I can't feel my fingers or my toes. And I was in my mind, I was in a tank top, and I looked really good, and it was sunny outside, and I had such a nice tan it never turned out the way it was in my mind. I gotta say, hindsight.
I'm curious, and this is not at all an indictment. Do you think that you would have had the same thoughts if you had been interviewing a man of that age?
That's interesting. That's a great question, Laura. A great question. And it's particularly a good question because when I got home, I brought up the subject to my mate at the time, and he said, I think that's too old or something to that effect. And I said, well, we hired a guy a number of years ago that was older. And that started, I think, both of us thinking, wow, what is too old to become a rider coach?
You know, I find a lot of people I talk to about becoming a rider coach, they say, I'm going to wait until I retire, you know, because right now I don't have the time to put into it. But when I retire, I'll do this. And I have a couple of people on my list, you know, that I have to reach out to in X number of years, you know, because by then they'll be retired and maybe they'd be more freed up to do it. So, I think some people are actually viewing their older age as a time frame in which to become a rider coach because they have different responsibilities and more free time and et cetera. So conversely, I have a couple of youngsters that came and took the class. They're not old enough in our state to be rider coaches. Plus they need to be licensed for 2 years before they can be a rider coach. But boy, I can't wait to scoop them up because one of them's already a snowmobile and a boating safety instructor and he's hot to trot, but I got to wait until he meets the age requirement on the other end. So I guess it works both ways.
I got to tell you, I am mentally completely spent at the end of a BRC day. I am mentally drained completely. And I don't think that I was as mentally drained 20 years ago, but I don't think that the first 2 years I was actually putting so much effort into okering. You know, I wasn't looking at every single student going, okay, what does he need? What does she need? What tweak can I give? What one tip here is the most vital for their continued learning? I don't think that I was in tune with that part of it.
How long do you think it took you, Sarah, before you started like really going, okay, I need to connect with each student, not just see the class as a whole, but I need to be able to see each student individually along with being in the class?
That's a really good, complicated question. I'll bet you everybody here would answer that differently. I don't know, I'm very detail oriented because of some attention deficit. I think that I hone in on things that other people might gloss over and see a larger picture first. I don't know. Definitely a few years before I even felt that I was making a difference in my coaching. What about you, Belinda?
I'll be starting with almost year 3 here in April, I think. Yeah. So I'm still, still very new. But yeah, but I mean, mine came, because of what I do as a career, I've always been very individual, but together kind of thing. But yeah, I think the first year I was definitely just like, I don't want to screw up, and then, yeah.
Belinda, excuse me, do you think that attending these happy hours and being on Tribe Talk has helped you accelerate that learning?
Yes, 1,000%. I mean, I have, I'm very big on making sure you like pat yourself on the back when you need it and you deserve it. And y'all, I have become a much better rider coach this year because of you guys. I really have. And to the point of like this past weekend, so it looks like we may have to go back to 2 rider coaches. Anyways, a big thing. One of our Rams, her dealership wants her to start being on the range and start possibly becoming a rider coach. They don't have to pay a second rider coach, all that fun stuff. Anyways, so she was out there and with me this weekend, and it was the first time. She's always kind of popped in and popped out and popped in, popped out, but she actually stayed out there with me this weekend. And it was really great to be able to be on, like, the coach, but then also say, well, look, talk to her about saying, okay, this is why we don't tell our horror stories. This is why we, and it was like, stop talking to the students, doing the whole, those kind of things, and really being able to look at it in that aspect. And when I get home, I called Deb, I always say the one that got me into this craziness. And I told her, I said, 2021, I will be searching out more training to do that, because I really enjoyed that part. And so, I'll hopefully get to be one of you guys 0.20 in the next 2 years. We're going to say, if not the end of 2021, in 2022, I would love to attend a train the trainer program. So first up, we'll go to Steve's class. That's what I'll do. I'll ride out to Colorado, take Steve's class, and then I'll can be one of you guys. So yes, Ron, completely 1,000%. If I was not purposely coming to these and being intentional about coming and learning from you guys, I don't think I would have had as much fun coaching 27 classes, solo classes at that, this year.
Okay, good. That sounds good. Sarah, do you think it's time to retire yet?
That's a very interesting question. I think that are you asking for you?
No, for you.
Oh, I thought you were asking about how I felt about you retiring. Oh,
I'm too young to retire, and I'm older than you.
Yes, you are, but only by a little. And I think that's a question for everybody to ponder. I don't think for me, retiring has nothing to do with my age. It has to do with my joints and how well they're keeping up with the rest of my body. It's a joint thing for me. It's my movements. If you're not physical, like Lynn mentioned before, it's a physical thing. Once you can't do it physically, the rest doesn't, it matters. But if you can't do what you need to on the range, and certainly if you can't keep working on your motorcycle skills, your own personal skills, I feel like it's wrong for me to continue to be a rider coach the second that I stop working on my own skills.
Well, I can tell you that every year, it takes me just a little bit longer to get back in the swing of things and feel good about the physicality of it. It takes a couple of courses now. It used to be like, oh yeah, piece of cake. And as I've matured, it takes me a little bit longer to get back in the swing of things.
Me too.
Agreed.
I think that's where entering into this at a later age, it's our responsibilities if we're interviewing or recruiting people to make sure they understand what they're getting into. Because if you get into it in your mid-60s and you're not in perfect condition, you could be in for a bad surprise.
Could be in for a big surprise. Yep.
Yeah, that's fair.
No.
Do you remember that video that we had I think it was an MSF video with that guy, that moron, and I just remember part of the video was him saying, well, nobody wakes up in the morning and says, I think I'll break my arm today. Do you remember that idiot? It was a real early, no, it could have been a Wisconsin specific video, but yeah, you're right about some large surprises physically.
And yet the trouble is trying to recruit younger people who have a life, have a job, want to ride, and recruiting gets to be a little challenging.
I also find that I ride less and less every year. I don't teach less, but I ride less and less. Oh, did you ride today? Well, no, but I rode to the range. Oh, that range? It's only a few miles from my house. Or Oh, maybe I got to a range that's an hour away. Yeah, so I rode today. Great. Really, I put on less and less miles every year.
So I think that one of the things, Sarah, I think Rick said something interesting about how they said they have a passport thing up there in New Jersey, that kind of thing. So I have found that if I give myself, because like I said, I mean, I try to coach as much as I can. And I mean, I also have small children and everything, but I think having those challenges and like setting yourself a challenge each year to get those miles in that make you do things, make you get on that bike. And then once you get on it, you're just on it and you never want, you don't want to get off. And I know this year one of ours is taking pictures in front of fire stations because the 20th anniversary of 9/11. And so we have 852 fire stations in Alabama. And so we're challenged this year. I mean, that's what we're doing. That's one of our challenges. And I think having that challenge like that, or having like the passport thing that Rick was talking about earlier, where you have to go and get signed or something, makes you get out and do it.
Is that for motor maids, Belinda?
It is. And that's why I was smiling earlier when they were talking about Gloria. But yeah, it is. We have every little district, we have a different one every year. We have a different contest, and that's one of ours this year. Is our picture contest is fire stations.
I like that. That sounds like a nice little marketing twist you could kind of engage graduates in. Hey, we're having a thing. Send us a picture of you in front of, pick some sort of landmark, and it could be good.
That would be fun. That would be really neat if you find something like a couple of big landmarks in your state and have them take a picture of themselves and send it in, and like maybe twice a year you guys have a drawing or give something, like something kind of freebie or something, or discount on the next class.
Exactly. Yeah, no, I think that's a nice little tie-in. It could be take a picture at the entrance to a national park or state park, or you have to think of something that's accessible enough, but also interesting, places people might like to ride to. I like that idea.
Yeah, we did state parks last year, the Alabama state parks, and because we had a big thing about they were trying to close our state parks down, and so we were like, no, everybody has to go to their state parks, and so we had a whole list of them we have to do, and so yeah, it really is a lot of fun. We have a big, different things, and like I said, just makes you purposeful about getting on your motorcycle.
Wisconsin as a state has, and I put a link to it in the chat, a rustic roads program for motorcyclists. You take a picture of yourself, your motorcycle, and a rustic roads sign, and you send in 10 pictures to the state, and you get a patch, and you send in 25 and you get a certificate. And they've had that running for many years.
Say, is a rustic road the same thing as like a seasonal road?
No, they're roads that are designated rustic roads because they have some appeal to they're rural, and they have some tourist appeal basically, and they can't be roads that are more than 45 miles an hour, and they maybe have a canopy of trees or something just really that makes them interesting to drive down.
And there's no sidewalks. And there's no concrete. It's not a poured road, not a.
No, they're often paved. It paved or not doesn't matter. It's just more I think the link might say information about what makes them rustic.
Interesting.
No curbs. I've never seen a curb on any of them. Curb is that the correct?
Yeah, because they're usually country roads.
Right.
Lightly traveled asphalt or gravel roads highlighting the state's natural beauty.
So glad you brought that up.
That presents lots of interesting, potential tie-ins for just for the program in general, to promote the program, maybe a DMV tie-in, or it's really interesting. I like that.
Yeah, you know, so if your state's not doing anything, maybe you can talk to your Department of Tourism or something like that to get them to do something similar.
Yeah, I'm sure Governor Cuomo would jump at that opportunity, wouldn't he, Lynn?
To be the state, it could be the tourism office or something. I mean, there's all kinds of potential avenues. I think it's worth pursuing. I'm going to think about this for a little bit.
And it's a good physical distancing activity.
Mike, hang in there. It looks like you're fading.
No, I was checking my phone. I was trying to find a picture on my phone.
I thought you were trying to make the blooper reel.
No, that's Ron. A motorcycle forum that I was on many years ago used to do a thing where at the start of each riding season, somebody would pick some sort of object. And the object of the exercise was to run out and take a picture of your motorcycle in front of whatever it was and be the first one to post it. And then that person got to pick what the next item was. So it could be anything like an oversized food item on a billboard, or something. If it's a crappy day, it might just be take a picture of your motorcycle in front of a red car, and the first one to post that picture gets to choose the challenge for the next day. And those got pretty interesting. And I found myself going out at lunch from work if I knew where something like, oh, I know where I can find one of the, like a historical marker sign. I know where I can find one nearby. So that became a fun challenge.
That's an interesting variant of the game that my husband is obsessed with. He participates in the ADV forum pretty often, and their thing is a place. Take a picture of your bike at a place. It could be any place, anything, as you said, a picture of a giant food item on a billboard somewhere. And then you got to find where that is and go there and take a picture of your bike, and then you get to post the next one, just like you said. And it's kind of to the point where that's like the only writing he'll ever do. No, we got to go get the tag. We got to go get the tag, which is great if it gets you out there. It's fun. We just went and got one the other day.
Yeah, that'd be an interesting variation, kind of like a hide and seek.
I told my husband that he has to learn. He's definitely, because he always rides like behind me and everything. He's definitely gotten some U-turn practice since October, because we if there's not a fire station sign and I pass a fire station, I'm like, boom. And so I'm definitely getting those duff U-turns and those, in, and he's gotten so good at doing, as I was thinking he would do great in Steve's class, because he is so good at like just all of a sudden having to slow and turn, because I've done something crazy and he's had to follow me. And so, yeah, that's a good way to have to practice those good old U-turns, is like just stopping and turning around and go back to different things.
Crazy Ivan. At the bottom of the hour, you turn right. At the top of the hour, you turn left. For anybody who remembers Hunt for Red October.
I went with some coaches down to IRETS in Kentucky, and we got lost constantly because we were taking the scenic route. And at the end of the day, we're like, holy crap, it's a really good thing we know how to do U-turns, because we got lost so many times. We did U-turns all day long.
Laura, what were you saying?
Time out, potty break.
Whenever we participate in those adventure riding games, I really appreciate how much that gets us into the little backwater places in Minnesota and Wisconsin, and within our upper Midwest area. It gets us to tiny little small towns, or going through tiny little small towns that we would otherwise never bother to drive through, and that's interesting to me.
I like this whole idea. I'm going to think about this over the winter and see if I can put together a plan.
You could make up your own, Lynn, and hand that out as a, now that you're a motorcyclist, assignment to your students. A little scavenger hunt.
First person to send back 20 pictures of their bikes in these 50 locations gets $20 off an ARC.
Or gets a free ARC, I mean, you said the word free, they're going to be more likely to get out there and take the, so the first one, no one needs to know who was the first one, right? I mean, so.
I had a friend years ago that won ABCs of touring for Hog. He said it cost him around $70,000 between fuel and tires and maintenance.
What, do you get a t-shirt out of the deal?
Yeah, and $500, I think.
No, he got his picture in that, in what did I saw his picture in something saying he
It was
won
in the Hog magazine.
in the Hog magazine. There he
It was the ABCs.
Yes. What?
You got a point for every state you went to, and alphabet of counties, and a few other toys in there.
It's not what it should be, Rita, is it?
No, we know better on the ABCs.
Yes, we do. Anybody else know the ABCs of motorcycling? Your attitudes, behaviors, and choices. That's what we do with the students in class. We do the ABCs. Right?
Belinda, that's Sherry behind me, if you hadn't noticed.
Oh, in the bike behind you. Yeah, okay. There, look at it. I'm telling you, she just blows me away. I met her and Chuck. Is it Chuck? Yeah. And they said she just amazed me whenever watching her do that. And that's my goal. Like I said, those kind of things. I have these certain motorcycle goals, and it goes back to also about that being intentional thing. That is a goal of mine, is to eventually get to go and do one of those things, be able to be part of one of those competitions. I admit that during lunchtime, when I'm at the dealership, I play around, because those bikes are a little bit smaller, so you can get a little bit tighter, and practice more and more. And my Ram likes that, the ones that I'm at there, they'll watch, and the students watch, and I think it's fun to be able to get to do more and more. And so, like, I'm looking forward. Maybe I'll see you out there, hopefully in the next year or so.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
All right, gang. Since I have the conch, I'm in charge of saying, let's say adios, or Don will be mad if we let this go for 45 extra minutes like we did the last time somebody else was in charge.
So Ron's going to come back.
Yeah.
Ron's going to come back and we're all going to be gone.
Happy holiday to everyone. He went to take the dog out.
Merry Christmas. Happy holidays.
Oh,
Happy New
Yeah.
Year.
Have a really good
Thanks,
holiday, everybody.
Hi, guys. Merry Christmas.
All of you.
Christmas, everybody.
Merry Christmas to everybody.
Merry Christmas. Y'all have a great day.
Safe, huh?
Bye. I hope everybody gets what you want for Christmas. Bye.
Good night, everybody.